Greetings, I'm Jennifer Kennedy, the lead for compliance and quality at CHAP, and welcome to another special edition of CHAPcast. In this series, we harness the knowledge and experience of our board of directors to help you jumpstart insightful and meaningful discussions in your own organization. The goal of these special podcasts is to equip your organization with greater insight and guidance that you need to excel and push the boundaries of quality in a positive direction. So today, we're going to be talking with our guest, our board member, a friend of mine, Dr. Daniel Maison, about what's been happening over the years with the hospice medical director. There has been a lot of change related to the hospice medical director and the role that he or she occupies over, I would say, the last decade plus, and that was really related to many federal regulatory changes. So the role of that position has always been a clinician, a member of the interdisciplinary team, and a participant in the organizational leadership. But I think that really hasn't been the case for many years. And in speaking with Dan today, we're going to look at that and talk about the ever-evolving role of that hospice medical director. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Dr. Maison. He's been practicing hospice and palliative medicine for over 25 years, and he's working as a full-time hospice and palliative care medicine physician since 2001. He's currently a regional medical director for Accent Care, and he is board certified in both internal medicine and hospice and palliative medicine. Dan speaks at national meetings and state meetings. He's worked extensively at the local, regional, state, and national levels, and he is currently the vice chair on the board of directors for CHAP. In 2006, Dan was elected a fellow of the American Academy of Hospice and Palliative Medicine, and in 2013, he was nominated by the AHPM as a visionary in the field of hospice and palliative care. Welcome to CHAPcast, Dan. It's so great to have you here.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. Always a treat to get to speak with you.
I know. We're going to be talking about a really interesting topic today. You've been a long time doc in hospice and palliative care, and you've been there when all of these federal regulations have been changing. And, I think it's because of that, it's changed the role, the flavor of the hospice medical director in a hospice. And my first question to you is, how do you think that role of the physician in hospice has changed?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. Really, when I first started out way back in 1998, it's been true even since before all of the really major changes that happened with the conditions of participation in around 2008, that the physician has always been a required, important member of the interdisciplinary team, but how that played out was quite variable from hospice to hospice. And for many folks, we talked about the 3 S's of being a hospice medical director or hospice doctor, which was basically, please show up on time, please sign, and please do it pleasantly with a smile. So show up, sign, and smile. We were not engaged very much in and around any sort of operational issues, oftentimes barely even engaged clinically other than to provide feedback during the team meeting and obviously being present in the team meetings. But what we've seen over time, and this was happening even before the regulations changed, and in many ways, those of us who've been doing it for a while really saw the change in regulation as an acknowledgement that we truly appreciated that there was a potentially bigger and more comprehensive role for the physician to play as a member of the team, recognizing that one of the not-so-secret weapons of hospice care in the United States is that interdisciplinary team. And being recognized as part of that and being sort of, in a sense, not mandated, but certain things were mandated, but really calling out that really important role. We really appreciated because we were very excited to be seen as active members within the organizations, active members within the team, and being able then to really provide a level of care, involvement, and engagement that those of us who fell in love with this field were really excited to get to do.
So CMS really was the instigator of, pushing that role out from under the leaves, if you will. Because, when I think about the last time that I was 2 feet in a hospice, it was just that, we relied on the physician to sign orders, and when I elevated to a leadership position inside a hospice, the medical director wasn't really that the mindset of the leadership didn't change. It was okay. The doc is just part of the IDG, signs the orders, and that's it. And I, even though I think some of those regulations were painful for hospices to implement, I think CMS had the right idea with shining a light on the hospice medical director and hospice physicians to say, hey, hospices, you need to be more cognizant about what their role is, not only with patients and families, but within the organization.
I couldn't agree with you more. I really agree. And as I think about some of the analogies, what's interesting is that even before those changes, what you saw was in and around, exactly to your point, a hospice medical director's involvement, either in really taking a very active role in patient care, operational issues, issues in and around outreach and sharing what we do, and all those other parts of what being a hospice is. We were absolutely, it really varied quite a bit from organization to organization. With the change in regulations, it really codified it and really, as you said, kind of got us out from under the leaves. I love that expression. These things we do. That being said, much as it was the case before the new COPs, some organizations thought, okay, well, I will follow the letter of the law. I will make sure we're crossing every T, dotting every I, absolutely following our regulatory requirements. But it really did require a pretty big shift in culture. Some hospices seem to have embraced it wholeheartedly. Some hospices were already doing what was asked of the new regulation. So for them, it was just a validation of what they were already doing. And then for others, it was, as you said, kind of quite challenging because it was a very different model than many hospices had worked under, heavens, at that point, for some of them, for 25 or more years.
Dan, do you see any difference between utilization of your hospice doc and the medical director position between them being part-time or full-time?
Absolutely. When you think about any job that we do, if your entire job, your entire body of work is one thing, it's going to be different than if you're sharing your time with several different obligations. That being said, when we think about people who are doing this work part-time, and oftentimes that is how it is. Many, many hospices, in fact, I don't have exact statistics, but I am sure the vast majority of physicians who are participating in interdisciplinary teams and working for hospice organizations, it is a part-time obligation as part of other things they do within their career. That is not at all meant to be an excuse or a reason why they can't be further engaged. It just means, just like anything else, if you've got multiple tasks and multiple obligations, you need to make sure you're being very intentional about how you spend your time. And anything that you commit to do with a level of engagement, energy, excitement, and caring as you do other things as well. So inherent in terms of the number of hours in the day, part-time versus full-time, there's a difference. That being said, there's nothing about having a physician being part-time that can preclude them from being truly engaged and truly being an active and helpful member of the disciplinary team, and also being of support to the organizations for which they work.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the word engage. So what's the best ways to engage medical directors out there for hospice leadership, hospice IDG? You've been around a long time. What is your advice for that particular item?
That's a great question. I think one of the best ways to do it is the same way we engage any other person that we are either working for, working with, or supporting in a leadership position. We want to make sure that they recognize and understand how much we value them, that we value their input, that we value their contributions, and that their participation really matters. And if we treat them with trust, treat them with respect, and help them understand how important they are to not only the care of the patients that are under their care as part of the team, but also to the organization as a whole, that will then not only help them understand, recognize how important their participation engagement is, but it will also reinforce to everybody else around them within the organization of the organization's view and understanding of what their role is as well too. And it becomes a wonderful sort of self-propelling cycle, much like if anybody's ever attended an IDG, as I'm sure almost everybody on this podcast has, you'll notice sometimes that as we are trying to bring together all kinds of different folks with wonderful, super, super helpful, really incredible expert opinions and expertise and wisdom in around the care of a patient, we have to be very intentional that everybody on the team is meant to really be there and be there in person, but also really feels that they are an active, important part of the team. The same thing happens blown up beyond just the IDG or at an organizational level, that we need to, just to be really direct, if we want our physicians to be part of the leadership team in partnership with the other leaders at the organization, we need to recognize them as leaders, celebrate them as leaders, and put them in a position where they not only are able to lead, but also held accountable to it, but also then the entire organization understands and recognizes that leadership position.
Yeah, I want to springboard off that. I think, having been in the leadership structure of a hospice organization, how can you make organizational changes that directly impact the care of patients? How could you not include your hospice medical director in those decisions, right? That makes no sense to me. But I know a lot of providers don't include their doc in those types of decisions.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think that, even if it's a matter of sometimes they don't, or sometimes they may under leverage them as well too. And this is not at all to say for a second that it should be always physician led, or it has to be the doctor this, the doctor that. But you're absolutely right. I will still see, despite the fact that the regulatory kind of sense and structure for hospice is absolutely elevated, what physicians are expected to do within the entire hospice organization, that engagement and leveraging as they're thinking about new initiatives, coming up with some sort of clinical program, looking or expanding into potentially a new area with a new disease state, right? Or a new group of providers, whatever it is. I couldn't agree with you more that there still is, just anecdotally and speaking with folks around the country, variability in terms of that engagement and leveraging of the physician as part of the team and part of the organization.
do you think we're talking about underutilization in the area of educating the team, particularly the clinical members of the team? Do you think that's an underutilization?
I really do. I think one of the times, at least when I have the privilege of still attending in IDG meetings on a regular basis. And one of the things that I love most is how much I learn from my teammates, and likewise, how much I get to share with them as we all learn together. And I think as you look at your team structure, and as you look at how your IDGs go, much as physician involvement, there are certain regulatory minimums that we have to hit in terms of involvement, be able to demonstrate that involvement. So too with IDGs, there are certain things that we have to do to meet the regulatory minimums, but there are many things we can do beyond those to really take the IDG from being a compliant meeting to being an optimal meeting. And I think as you're thinking about the IDG meetings at your organizations, the point is to get there, get everything done, get everything signed, and get people back out in the field again, as opposed to recognizing the incredible opportunity of having all of these dedicated, incredible professionals in one room, all focusing on the care of one patient and their chosen family. It's incredible how much expertise, often years or decades of shared experience in that room. And I think many times we don't leverage each other enough to learn from each other. And the physician is one of those people that often, I would say, is under-leveraged in terms of being somebody who could help teach and elevate the whole team.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's always 5 minutes for the teaching moment, based on what's happening that day.
Yeah. I will share one quick anecdote I'll never forget.
Please.
When I was in, this is way before my hospice time, not way before, I guess a few years before, back in medical school, that a very wise mentor of mine said, every single patient you meet has something to teach you, or maybe a lot of things, but there's something to learn from every single person that you're asked to look after. And I would say that's absolutely true on hospice as well. Every patient that we're asked to take care of along with their chosen families has something to teach us, whether it's a reminder about how certain diseases tend to play out, prognosis, medication management, psychosocial issues that tend to happen in general with it, or just a particular family dynamic, whatever it is, whether it's a physician-related issue and or from some other member of the team. There is so much learning that we have every time we get together at the team meetings that, exactly to your point, it's not about giving a 2-hour lecture about X, Y, and Z. There are teachable moments with almost every patient that we talk about that are just literally, a few seconds to a minute or two, and so much wisdom and expertise can be shared on the fly as we discuss these patients at every meeting.
I don't know. It sounds like you have a book in you, Dan. I'm not sure.
It could be.
All right.
It could be.
Let's say I'm going to make the commitment to better engage my hospice medical director, and if I have other hospice physicians. What do you think the challenges or barriers could be to a provider who is just, starting to flip this house, if you will?
That's a great question. This is especially true if, and I had experience like this before, as I'm sure many people listening have, where an organization has now decided to either add additional physician support and or now look at the physicians on their staff and decide, hey, how can we best engage them, include them, have them leverage that expertise in terms of all the things we're working on. And as you can imagine, in any given organization, there's not one or two things they're working on. They're often working on 10, 12, 20, 30 different things, whether they're QAPI projects, right? Whether they're marketing initiatives, whether you're looking at engaging with and growing in a certain area with a certain disease state, whatever it is. There are tons of opportunities as a leadership team thinks about how can I best leverage the physicians I have working with me now? How can I best engage them and partner with them? Or how can I actually add them to things they weren't necessarily involved with before? And so what I would ask for and what I found to be most helpful in the times that I've been asked to participate in things like this is for there to be a really clear ask. And because there are so many things that any of us get help with a lot, it's really important for the leadership who's supporting the physician to have a clear sense of triage of what are the 1, 2, maybe 3 things that they really want the physician to focus on to be of most help. I'd recommend doing that. And of course, we talked previously about the part-time versus full-time. Be really realistic. If you're asking somebody to participate in something that will take 10, 15 hours a week, or even 5 hours a week, and you know their commitment to you, which they honor very consistently, but they only have so many hours per week, make sure that make sure you know what you want from them, have that triage to 1, 2, 3 things. Be realistic about what you're asking of them so that they don't overcommit and then let you down, because even though they want to, their heart's in the right place, they don't have the time. So be realistic about that. But really then focus in on the things you really want them to really look at and be a part of. And the other challenges sometimes is bring them in, have a cup of coffee and ask them and say, hey, you've been with us now for 6 months to a year. Team loves you. This is great. Thank you. As you're looking around the organization and things that we are absolutely rocking, we need to celebrate, things that are going okay and things that need TLC. What are the 2 to 3 things you think you could be most helpful with, or what would get you the most excited, the most engaged to help with? Because just like anybody else, all of us docs have got different things that we love more than others. We have certain things that, that we tend to have more ease with or more comfortable with, have more experience with, and things that we're less excited to do. Not that it's, again, right or wrong. If the work needs to get done, it needs to get done. But as you're looking for things, if there's a choice of 5 things that need a physician's help, and you see 2 of them are really a good match for the physician you're engaging, think about that as well. Or if you're not sure, it's always great, in addition, in terms of building on that engagement piece, tell us, doctor, where do you think you could be most helpful? Do you feel like you're being engaged? Do you really think you're being involved at a level that's most helpful? How do you see your role being best of support to patients and family care and to the organization? And so I think that's a really good place to start.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start. And someone who's just kind of new to this flipped thinking, what do you think they should want to learn about, and where would they find resources for that?
That's a really great question. So what I would do, again, is ask your team. Ask your team, engage folks saying, hey, we've got this great doc who's been working for us for a while. How else do you think this person could be helping us do certain things? Ask the physician themselves.
But make sure it's balanced.
Make sure, right? Absolutely right. Yeah.
Okay.
And make sure that whatever you ask is going to be realistic, exactly right. And then also, hold up a mirror, right? I think I have friends out there, and, I'm sure we've all met people like this too, where you will have a physician, for example, they're saying, we wish they were more of a leader within the organization. We wish that they took a stronger, more engaged role in terms of helping in partnership with their colleagues to help really set the tone of the organization, in a really positive way in terms of high quality, clinical excellence and other things as well too. Make sure that as you're looking at yourselves, are you as leaders in your organizations recognizing and celebrating the doctors for the leaders that you wish they were, or you wish they were more of? Make sure that you're calling that out in a way that's very supportive and really there too. And absolutely right to your point about being balanced. One of the things that will often sometimes happen, and this is absolutely human nature, if your organization's been waiting to have a wonderful, engaged doctor with the time to actually help you move the needle on a bunch of things, make sure as you're looking at it that you are realistic about the time it's going to take, realistic about how much time per week it's going to actually have to happen. So how long it's going to take to move the needle, what the commitment really is, and make sure that we're managing the expectations of ourselves and of staff, because it's really easy. The analogy we talk about, right, is if you're dying of thirst, right, and somebody gives you a cup of water, that's fantastic, and but the thing is all of a sudden you say, wow, can you get us water for everything? Meaning that when you have somebody who comes to you, if it's been a while, or you've added somebody new you're excited about, be sure that you are cognizant and very intentional about the fact that you don't overwhelm them with 20 things that you need fixed yesterday, especially if they've been needing a little TLC for a while, so that as you manage expectations, that the new person or the person who's newly been asked to engage at a different level has the time and the runway and really has the ability to commit to that, to be a successful partner in those things. Because just like any other change that's coming about, if this is a significant change for your organization, you're going to really want to make sure that you can log some wins early on to help people recognize and understand why you've asked your physician or physicians to be engaged in a different way or in a new way. But also it will help reinforce your efforts in setting them up to success, and in doing so, be a really good long-term partner to help support your organization.
Gosh, I loved everything that you just said. I mean, it's the way it's got to be in this hospice landscape for sure. Mm-hmm. It's a tough landscape right now, and we need everybody. We need to harness everybody's potential and knowledge and talent in order to walk the compliance high road and give good quality care to patients and families. And, I wanted to thank you for coming on the Chapcast today. I always learn something when I talk to you over the years. Since I've known you. So, you've given us some great knowledge today, and it's really practical knowledge and applicable knowledge. So, thank you so much for sharing it.
Well, thank you for your incredibly kind words, and absolutely mutual, Jennifer. At the time, we've really, really appreciated getting to know you, getting to work with you now at CHAP has been absolutely fantastic. And I appreciate the opportunity to talk about something that's clearly very near and dear to my heart. I really appreciate this time together.
Absolutely. And thanks to all of you for taking time out of your day to plug into our special podcast. From me and the entire CHAP staff, keep your quality needle moving forward, stay safe and well, and thanks for all you do.